Hey, I'm Ryan Orwig, creator of STATMed Learning. Let's do a deep dive into our STATMed Boards Reboot Camp. This is our big, in-depth, pull out all the stops boards prep platform designed for anyone who is stuck on big, high-stakes medical board exams. This includes those who are proactively concerned about passing their boards and those who really just want the best ways to study and show what they know as they prep for their next big board exam. It's ideal for any of the big medical board exams like your USMLEs, complexes, the NAVLE, any specialty board like internal medicine, peds, family medicine, surgery, or anything along those lines. So all that said, first of all, what is the STATMed Boards Reboot Camp? It combines our STATMed Study Skills course and our STATMed Boards Test-Taking workshop. This includes the core STATMed study skills for boards, study, or restudy, because restudying can be a real challenge since it's all familiar at this point, so new skills can be even more impactful here. Time management and workflow tools are included to optimize time spent while studying, because look, time is the most scarce commodity for all of us, so we need to be ruthlessly effective and efficient with all of our study time. And it includes the full boards workshop for test training using the STATMed blueprint with one-on-one feedback. I'll elaborate on all of this as we work our way through this video. Okay, number 2, who is the STATMed Boards Reboot Camp for? It's for anyone prepping for a medical board exam like your USMLE step exams, your complexes, or your NBMEs. It's for the NAVLE. It might be for a specialty board exam like peds or emergency medicine or internal medicine. It can be for any medical professional in related fields like pharmacy, veterinarians, PAs, optometry, etc. Many people will take the reboot camp because they failed the first time and they want to change their process to expect different results when they retake it. Some will take the reboot camp proactively before taking the boards for the first time, usually because there's some indicator that puts them at risk and they want to improve process and improve likelihood of passing or scoring higher. These risks include, but are not limited to, having ADHD, perhaps being older or a non-traditional student, perhaps having life changes or not having enough time to study. There might be indicators from your earlier training that you might be at risk, or otherwise feeling like you are not happy with your study and test-taking skills. We can reboot all of this here and now with the Reboot Camp. Number 3, why do the Reboot Camp? Well, it's twofold, I think. Number 1, because you want to redesign the way you study because you feel like you don't know the best study methods for your own needs. And number 2, you want to redesign the way you plug into and navigate and answer board-style questions because you identify as a bad test taker. And keep in mind, while the Reboot Camp is primarily designed to help our students improve performance specifically on the next upcoming exam, the skills you're learning in the Reboot Camp they're evergreen and can continue to pay off in the future. We want our students to become mini experts for their own learning and test-taking needs for the rest of their careers, and I think that's pretty exciting. Okay, number 4, when to take the Reboot Camp. I'd say the Reboot Camp is ideal for those prepping for a specific board exam that is between 2 and 6-ish months away. If you're ready to start studying and doing practice questions, it's time to do the Reboot Camp. And the key is using the skills you learn consistently after completing the Reboot Camp. I mean, why wait? With the Reboot Camp, we're talking about tearing down your old process and installing all new methods, so in my mind, the sooner the better. Number 5 asks how the Reboot Camp is structured. How's it set up? We only run a few Reboot Camps per year, and each one has its own specific schedule, but they follow essentially the same logistical setup. Contact us to find out what Reboot Camps are on the horizon. We will often run programs without even announcing them because we already have enough to run one, so always ask. Here are some STATMed Boards Reboot Camp logistics to be aware of. A Reboot Camp will run with between 4 and 10 students, give or take. We keep the ratio small so we get to know each of you. It's live online. This means we have live Zoom-style meetings, but it's like we're sitting around a conference table together. The meetings are interactive and we're always talking. I mean, yes, there's dissemination, but this is not death by dissemination. The Reboot Camp has 5 designated locked-in live group meetings, and they can range from anywhere from 2 to 4 hours depending on group interaction and group size. These would be locked into the schedule before we start, and we would all be on the same page. Then we also have 3 live online 1-hour one-on-one meetings. And these happen within designated windows that are built into the schedule. And these are super flexible to meet each student's needs. We try to be flexible to optimize student learning as to when these happen. There's always a plan for these meetings, part of the scope and sequence of the Reboot Camp's educational design. We don't just show up and putter around and talk about your feelings or something like that. There's always a plan, and you will know exactly the work that needs to be completed before each of these individual meetings to optimize your experience. People often ask, can you meet with your StatMed specialist more than in those 3 meetings? And the answer to that is yes. We often stick around and meet with students after the group meetings, or if a student has a question or concern during the scope of the Reboot Camp, we often meet either online or via a phone call to address the concern. The goal is to keep everyone moving forward, and sometimes that means extra meetings, and that's great because we're able to do that. There are also on-demand video lecture modules the students watch before and between the group one-on-one meetings. The current design has 11 modules. This is always subject to change as we evolve our platforms, but they're always assigned in a sequence, so you always know exactly what to watch and when to watch it. And these lectures build off of each other as part of the curricular scope and sequence. Then there's the homework. We start off using prescribed assignments that we have been carefully curating on our end to accelerate the onboarding of the skills, allowing students to get the quick practice reps that they need with each skill in isolation before we start combining and folding the skills on top of each other and connecting them. This is all part of the secret recipe for success that we use and is essential for quickly learning the new skills. Remember, we are learning specialists. Then by the 3rd and 4th meeting, students are using their own boards prep material to start applying the study methods in an authentic manner. We help guide you toward this kinds of material to select and what's going to work best for you. On your end as a student, you need some basic logistical necessities to take part in the Reboot Camp, like a stable internet connection, a stable device with webcam and speakers, and a quiet, stable environment to participate in the group and one-on-one meetings. It's pretty standard stuff. The cost is a flat rate, which is attached to the specific scheduled session with no hidden fees. In the future, we may add on some outside-the-box learning methods that you could then buy as a second package, but we're not there yet, and that's not happening at this point. We can also work with payment plans in some circumstances. If you're interested in that, just talk to me about it. Then here we have an extremely detailed breakdown of the Reboot Camp. This is likely more than anyone needs to know, but some of my students want exactly this kind of breakdown, so here it is. And it's nice because it's the easiest way to let you approximate the time costs of the Reboot Camp, but it's all super flexible, person by person, group by group, and ultimately you can get more out of it by putting in more work. And yes, many people are working while doing the Reboot Camp. That is often a necessity, and we're aware of that, and that is perfectly fine. Number 6 asks, should you do the Reboot Camp or a boards review program somewhere else? First of all, let's make sure we understand the difference here. A review program, that's not what we are. A review program is a delivery vehicle for all the content you need to know for your exam. They tell you the what. This is a vast industry. For most exams, there will be a variety of good to great options for this. And this is exactly what many people want and need, and that's great. But we're different. At StatMed, we don't teach you the content. We don't teach the what. We are reading and learning experts, and we've been doing this exclusively with medical education since the early 2000s. Instead, we teach the how to study medicine. We teach you how to organize and code, store, and retrieve vast amounts of medical information in a timely, active, engaged manner and make it stick over the long haul. How to do this dynamically in discrete, external, explicit steps, how to maximize your time, how to cognitively offload scheduling and planning and tracking, how to generate and navigate workflow, and how to properly read test questions, teaching you to show what you know and generate feedback to help fix bad test taking, because at the end of the day, bad test taking is bad behavior. So People who choose to do the Reboot Camp are looking for autonomy, to be in control of their learning and test taking, to work independently and plug into any review content, because you still need the content, and apply the StatMed methods to that material every time you study, minute by minute, hour by hour, block by block, week by week, marching forward, mastering what they need to master to perform well clinically, and of course, make it all pay off on test day. But look, if you want spoon-fed content spaced out over weeks or months, someone to hold your hand, which is a fair thing for some people to want, and if you want someone to make you accountable over the entire span of your prep, like a long-term coach, that's just not us. That's not what StatMed does. If you want that, that's fine. There are review programs or academic coaches out there for that. But with the StatMed Reboot Camp, our students, they're coming to us saying, I have a problem. I don't know the best way to study. I don't know how to get the most bang for my buck every time I sit down to study, and I don't know how to become a better test taker. They say, I'll put in the time, I'll put in the blood, sweat, and tears. I'm not looking for a magic wand. I'm looking for answers from methods to unlock my ability and to make my hard work pay off. And that is what we provide with the StatMed Boards Reboot Camp. We start the Reboot Camp and we march you guys through our meticulously designed scope and sequence, disseminating, assigning, practicing homework, giving feedback, each skill building to the next. It's intense, but of course digestible. Lots of accountability, lots of feedback, lots of brain power and expertise and eyes on you. And then after a few weeks, once you have onboarded the skills, we turn you loose and you go forth and you do the work and you prep independently and autonomously. And that's what the people that work with us want. Does that make the onus of success fall on each and every StatMed student? Yeah, for sure. And that's what the students who sign up for the StatMed Boards Reboot Camp want. And if that's what you want, then the Reboot Camp is likely a good fit for you. That leads to number 7, what skills are taught in the workshop? We break down the content of the Reboot Camp into 3 categories: study methods, time management and planning, and test taking. And you can see the list here. Some of the skills make sense, some might not, which speaks to the fact that culturally we lack a robust set of discrete study skills that we teach and talk about. The Reboot Camp solves this by teaching each of these skills in varying degrees of depth, so we can have a common vocabulary to evaluate and modify and design how we will study for boards. Ultimately, if you do the Reboot Camp, you still must select the primary content material you'll use to study. We cannot and would not provide that. So keep that in mind, but also remember, you can plug this into anything, which is a key value of the Reboot Camp. Broadly, I recommend that this content, whatever it is, has some sort of organized text-based foundation, from PDFs to PowerPoints to books to handouts. And if there is a corresponding video lecture component, that's a bonus but not required. I'd avoid anything that is purely audio and video without that external text-based foundation. Again, I can always walk people through this in a short conversation if desired. And of course, we get into all of this in the Reboot Camp itself. What do students say who take the StatMed Boards Reboot Camp? Here's the kind of stuff incoming Boards Reboot Camp students say regarding the study and management side of the equation. They might say, I'm familiar with most of what I need to know, but don't know how to find and fix the holes in my knowledge. This is the kind of trap of familiarity in most popular study methods, like rereading and reviewing, only further entrench this issue. In the Reboot Camp, we're going to flip this around with the methods we teach. They might say, sometimes I miss questions because I'm super familiar with it, but don't know the deep details. So this is when you know down to, say, the 3rd layer of information, but the question needs you to specifically recall details from like the 5th level. Augment study-based studying that focuses on structure can help eliminate some of this. Or maybe they say, it's crazy to admit, but I don't know the best ways to study, especially restudying for boards. And this is because culturally, we don't teach smart med students and physicians how to study. And at a boards level, people look at you like, what, you made it this far, just go study harder. What does that even mean? No, let's solve this issue here and now. Let's use this opportunity to completely redesign how you study in this all-important context. I mean, look, it's fair to say you don't know the best way to study. That certainly isn't your fault. We don't teach smart adults how to study. The Reboot Camp addresses this head on, bound together within the context of boards. Okay, and then someone else might say, my study sessions are passive and lack structure, relying too much on rereading and reviewing. To this I'd say, if this works for you, great, but we can do better, much better. This is like an office drone mentality, like punching a time clock will give you the yield you need. Forget that. We need an entrepreneurial mentality, like you own the business, which you do. This is your business, this is your livelihood, this is your time is your money, and we need to make it so you get the most bang for your buck every time you sit down to study. Another common thing we hear is this, when people say things like, I feel like I forget as much as I remember, and it's worse over weeks and months of boards prep. This is an issue with short-term to long-term memory to organizing and encoding and retrieval. This should be a major concern for everyone, and boards study methods must set us up to return to the material through distributed retrieval practice in a way that fosters growth through distribution and interleaving and structure. That ties into this related statement, which is more of a goal when someone says, I want to make studying like a high intensity fitness training, but I don't know the best ways to study to make it all stick over the long haul. And again, the methods we teach will unlock this. Finally, I hear a lot of people ask, how do I plan, manage, and track study progress short-term and long-term? We need management tools that offload cognitive burden. We need a micro tracker and a macro tracker. We need management tools set up front so we can focus our resources on the day-to-day studying and learning. This is all built into the Reboot Camp. If you identify with some of these bullets, the Reboot Camp is likely a good fit for you, and we address all of these issues I've discussed here and more within the camp. Then on the test-taking side, students might say things like, I do great clinically, but I can't translate what I know to exams. Or they might say, I always narrow down to 2 and then pick the wrong one. Sometimes a missed tie break is due to not knowing that deeper level structurally from the study side, but sometimes it is a test-taking issue that we can debug here and now and reduce or eliminate that kind of issue. Sometimes they'll say things like, I realize I missed a question that I should have gotten right. And that happens when they say, I read the explanation and then realize I should have gotten it right. This is a test-taking miss. We need to reduce the occurrence of these patterns. Bad test takers also say things like, I miss or distort key clues, and I don't trust myself, where they say things like, I'm always rushing to catch up and making unforced errors. Look, test taking at the board's level is a weak link system, meaning you are only as good as the weakest aspect of your process. On the front end, we must improve how we study and learn and encode and retrieve all the information we have to learn for the boards. That's the study side of the Reboot Camp. But then we have to be able to show it on test day. We have to use the parts of what we know. We have to be consistent. We have to clean up what I call our interface as a test taker with the test itself. That's why we have the test taking meticulously built into the Reboot Camp. This gives our students the best shot at addressing boards prep from all angles. So if this sounds interesting to you, feel free to reach out for an informal interview and a chat so I can hear your story, answer your questions, and help us both decide if the Reboot Camp is a good fit for you. I'm not a salesman, and I'll never try to talk you into anything. No one wins that way, but I'm always happy to chat. Or if you already know you want to move forward, let us know. Seats go fast, and sometimes we schedule Reboot Camps with little to no warning. I hope you found this informative, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for watching.